after the Labor New South Wales election win, the recriminations are well underway inside the Liberal Party. One influential member of the Liberal Party who sits on state executive joins me now. Alex Dore, thanks for coming in tonight to talk about the election result.
Thanks, Sharri. Thanks for having me.
So give us the latest update. Where are we looking? How many seats has Labor claimed? How many have the Liberals firmly got? And what are we looking at in terms of the undecideds?
Yeah, so you might be surprised to hear because the media have talked about an outright majority. They've talked about a landslide. As it stands at the moment, there are 45 seats that have been called for Labor. They need 47 to get an outright majority. Two of those, the remaining undecided seats, we've got 12 undecided to go. Two of them are leaning towards Labor at the moment. That's Kiama and that's the seat of Ryde. But
you're saying Ryde's leaning towards Labor at the moment?
At the moment, but
okay.
It's 0.1% in their favour on the two-party preferred. So that's becoming more and more tight, and you'd have to question whether or not that will stay in the Labor column or not. And so there is the possibility that the Labor landslide that we've been talking about will actually end up being a limp across the finish line and rely on the minority government that the bookies were talking about earlier.
Okay. Yeah, I spoke to someone on the polling booth who were counting or scrutineering in Ryde today, and that was swinging back a bit towards the Liberals.
Yeah.
Now, the Liberal Party does now have some soul-searching to do. What do you think went wrong here? I mean, you know, I know we're talking about not a massive landslide win like when Barry O'Farrell came in or Kevin Rudd came in. You know, sometimes when you do have a change of government after a long period of time in the wilderness, there are very strong results. Tony Abbott, another one. We're not seeing that here, but it still is a very strong result from Labor, particularly when you look at their primary here compared to their primary vote at the federal election.
Yeah.
So what do you think the Liberal Party needs to do to regroup?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, the truth is we can frame it in whichever way, but they won the election. So that's just the truth of it. You're right that in 2011, when Barry O'Farrell had his landslide, he went from 35 seats to 69 seats. We're now talking about Labor possibly getting to a majority in its own right, but that seems more and more unlikely. But they ran a disciplined campaign. They were hungry for the victory. They were a united party. They also ran a really small target campaign as well. And I think it has to be said that they, at least in the eyes of voters, appear to have somewhat rehabilitated the Labor brand over the last few years. But I think there's the other side of that as well, which is we have to be honest as a coalition as well as the Liberal Party that we didn't run as disciplined a campaign. I think that after 12 years, sometimes voters think, well, you know, it's time to change again. And we had a bit of dysfunction, some things that we could have done better, and you'd have to say that that contributed to the result as well.
And there are also some areas that you think are should be very safe for the Liberal Party, you know, parts of Western Sydney, even the South Coast, where the party has either struggled to hold on to those seats or lost them completely.
Yeah.
What are the lessons for policy in these areas? Do you think the Liberal Party needs to become, move a bit more to the Conservative side? Do you think it was, you know, this renewable energy push that lost voters or something else entirely?
I think maybe the cop-out answer here, though, is that it's all of the above. I mean, the truth is that we didn't have policies or we didn't have a message that resonated across the state, and we had swings against us on the Northern Beaches, the North Shore. We had swings down south and in Western Sydney. We're fortunate that we have optional preferential because if we didn't, I think we would have had a very similar result up north that we had at the federal election. So we have to, admit that we did get swings everywhere. Workers that I spoke with on polling booths in Western Sydney said that there was a lot of an it's time factor that seeped in, but there was remnant anger or frustration about the lockdowns. I mean, parts of Western Sydney were locked down more than other parts of the state. So there is residual frustration there as well.
Look, I also want to ask you about the party process. That one of the big problems, and it's not totally unusual for the Liberal Party or any party, but it was a big problem that you had about 10 seats where there wasn't a candidate, very shortly before the actual election campaign, so they didn't have a chance to do work on the ground. What do you think needs to change?
So, organisationally, we need to do better. We've got 4 years now at least in the wilderness, so we've got a bit of time to get it right. But there's no doubt that at the federal election, we should have learnt the lesson. We need candidates in the field. We need to give branch members a voice because they are people on the ground. We've got thousands of members across the state and they're in touch with their local communities, so they should have been empowered earlier. And I think we can gloss over it, but it's the case that, you know, factional differences, some game playing got involved in that process and inhibited us from choosing candidates early. And it may very well cost us in some of these seats which have come down to the wire. So we need to get that right next time. And I think it requires, well, we're going to need to embark on constitutional change. If I can give you one example, our board of directors of our political party, our state executive has 27 members on it. The board of this organisation would have 6 to 8 members on it. You can't govern with 27 people where you need 90% agreement to get things through. So there's all of these antiquated processes.
That point's been made to me by a few people today that you know, you just can't have backing around one candidate with a 90% threshold because someone's going to have a different point of view.
It's impossible, yeah.
Alex Dore, thank you very much for joining me this evening.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.